All right, welcome again. This is Sebastian Saldarriaga, and I am here with Jesse from Apex Crypto Consulting Group. I'm very excited to have Jesse again here on this show because last time we did an interview with Jesse, we had a very good response from the public. And in that last interview, we were talking about the different names that are out there for the XRP Ledger. Basically, all these elite institutions such as the BIS, the IFM, the different institutions out there that are like basically they pull all the strings in the financial industry are using different names such as Project Agora, Finternet, the Share Ledger, and in reality, they're talking about the exact same thing, which is the XRP Ledger. That was an amazing interview, Jesse. Thank you so much for sharing all the knowledge and all the stuff that you have been sharing with us. And it's a pleasure to have you here again. How are you, Jesse?
Oh, I'm doing very well. No, it's an honor to be here, Sebastian. Like I said last time, I was so excited to have this conversation with you. And to me, I was just blown away by the conversation we had. You were really asking all the right questions, and we were all on the same page. It was just amazing. I'm really honored to be here. And it was like, I was really excited. Our last collab. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So we have some new stuff that we're going to be talking about today that, in my opinion, are very important. That is happening right now on some of the documents that have been found out there that are basically private documents that start to filter themselves or leak themselves into the public. And one of those people that are always on top, other than you two, Jesse, is the famous Smoke on X. He has a very big reputation to find these hidden documents or hidden gems that are not seen by the general public. And so you, Jesse, you also have that way that you can find these documents and you can find this different information that is not very public, but this is the information that helps us find what is really happening behind closed doors, behind the veil, that are really happening in the financial industry, in the financial system, and how we're moving into a new financial system that is going to be completely based on these technologies. And so, how about we start talking about the new document that was found where it is clearly shown that XRP is already integrated into the regulated banking ecosystem. I want to know what do you think about this document? What do you think about that XRP is already integrated into the regulated banking system, and also how this is showing us that it also has a lot to do with the ISO 20022 messaging standard that is also going to be starting here in the next couple of months, or is going to be implemented into all the banking rails around the world.
Yeah, so I actually did a collaboration with Smoke Dog. I did a few with Smoke Dog, so shout out to him and Maximus Crypto. He brought us together, so really thankful for Maximus Crypto. He's awesome for bringing us together. And we did a collaboration exactly about that, about the new documents that he had found showing how the Interledger protocol, he was actually showing that XRP Ripple is literally integrated in all of the financial system. They're all interconnected, the Interledger protocol and XRP. And we talked about the ISO 20022 as well. The whole goal of Ripple was to fix the banking system. It's to fix the issues with the banking system because right now, prior to XRP Ledger and the Interledger protocol, when you're sending a payment, it's going through multiple corresponding banks. And because it's going through so many banks, and because it's based on a system that's technically pre-internet, it's so inefficient. This is really problematic for the banks because the banks want to keep control. They want the general public to have confidence in the system. And so when you're sending a payment cross border internationally and 7% of the payments are lost in the process, or you don't even know where the payment is at any time. Like honestly, the Swift system, when you send a payment, it's like sending a letter by horse 80 years ago. You send a payment and you don't know where the payment is at. So that's why you call your bank all the time and you're like, hey, is my payment here? And the bank's like, we don't know. We'll let you know when it gets here. But where it's at, we don't know. We'll know that it got here if it gets here. It's like sending a letter on a horse years ago. Like they don't know where the payment's at until it hits the account with 6 to 7% error rates. And what happens is because it's so unstable and so uncertain, all of the banks have to hold money in what we call nostro vostro accounts. So if a bank in the US wants to send a payment to a bank in Japan, the bank in the US has to hold money in a bank in Japan, dormant capital. It needs to have a certain amount of money in that bank so that when it does decide to send a payment to that bank, the bank can settle it because it already has the money. Like it's what we call nostro vostro accounts. So there's 10 to 20 trillion dollars trapped globally just to help with bank settling because of this clunky system. So this is trapped liquidity that could be used for many other things. And also when they try to stimulate the economy too, this is what we call liquidity crisis. My understanding is like when they try to stimulate the economy and they inject money, because it's so clunky, like the money doesn't move fast enough. It doesn't provide that liquidity. So I think they have to print way more than what they would have to just because it's so clunky. It doesn't get to its destination and doesn't get to where it needs to get on time. So I guess to answer your question is this has been planned for a very long time because
Yeah.
they need to fix this. They knew that the more that they were going to globalize everything, because they want globalization. It's the bankers that want it. It's the central banks and the big corporations. They want globalization because now they can import, export different products from the poorer countries, for example, if they can bring them in. Like they want globalization. It benefits the corporations, not the people in general. But if you have such a clunky system, it's hard on globalization. So for example, if a corporation in the US wants to get cheap labor in some country where their currency is worth like almost nothing, that corporation in the US sends $100 to this country. Let's say it's $100 per month because their currency is worthless. Let's say in the Philippines, for example, their currency is very, very almost worthless compared to US dollar, let's say, right? So when they send $100 per month, maybe the salary for that employee is only $100 US per month, or maybe it's 200 US per month. Well, if you're sending $200, but it's costing $30 through the Swift system to
Yeah.
process that transaction, plus it's taken 2 weeks, plus there's so much error rates, and then the banks they get calls, and the call centers get so many calls to see where the payment is, and then they have to try to mitigate everything, and then they have to fix all the issues, and it's accounting mess and all that stuff. Like it's not. That's why they want it. There's many reasons why they want to use this technology and why it was planned, but like they need to fix this global. The main thing is to fix the global liquidity crisis. And to
Yeah.
fix this, you need the XRP Ledger, you need instant settlement, you need the ISO standard, the messaging format for the standards for the payment to be standardized. You need all these things. So it's integrated. We're seeing that it's integrated in the system, the XRP Ledger, because it's been planned by the system for years. For years.
Yeah.
That's why we're seeing now the evidence. People are starting to connect the dots more because
Yeah,
it
and I
was
think
planned for
that
them.
at this point, like we were saying in the last interview, we were talking about how this is not something that is going to happen spontaneously. This is something that is being planned for many years. This is something that decades ago, they want this globalization. The
Mhm.
globalists, which are
Right.
the owners of the bigger banks in the world, they want globalization. And that's why there's talks about the CBDCs, or the central bank digital currencies, in many different countries, even though here in the United States, there was just a new law that it was passed by President Trump that supposedly there's not going to be CBDCs. But the only difference between a CBDC and a stable coin is just that a CBDC is owned by the government and a stable coin is owned by a private company. But in the reality is that is the same thing. I believe that that is how they're going to be introducing a CBDC into the United States, for example, or into any other country in the world, where in other countries in the world are literally already talking about, like there's, for example, the digital peso in Colombia, or digital peso in Mexico, or the digital euro in that area, et cetera, et cetera. But basically that is going to be the way that I believe in the future we're going to be receiving, most people are going to be receiving a universal basic income. But that's the only problem with the CBDCs, where you're going to be receiving, because a lot of people are going to lose their jobs thanks to AI, robotics, blockchain, AI, voice, all of these things that are literally replacing people's
Yeah.
income, jobs.
Yeah.
They're going to be receiving a universal basic income. And at some point, the governments are going to be able to manipulate their citizens by
Yep.
basically telling them, if you don't do certain thing, or if you don't follow certain rules, or if you don't pay taxes or whatever, they can block your CBDC wallet.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is all part of like this technology. This technology is very positive, but it's also could be used for negative purposes too. And what I think is important for people to understand is that you have to prepare now, not wait later. This is the moment for you to learn about this technology, for you to study, research, and start preparing and positioning yourself. Because like Jesse's saying, this technology is going to help you and help the world and all the banks transfer big amounts of money in 3 seconds for less than a penny. And right now, the SWIFT system, it takes 2-3 days. It's super slow and it's expensive. Now, that's another reason why technologies like Bitcoin is not the technology that is going to be used by these banks. Even though they're buying Bitcoin and they have reserves in Bitcoin, is not the technology that is going to be used for the day-to-day transfers, the day-to-day payments constantly.
No, not at all. You were saying earlier about the different countries working on CBDCs. If you look at the Atlantic Council, this is a kind of a tank for the central bankers. If you go on a website and you look at the reports on the progress with CBDCs, it's like 98% or 99% of the central banks in the world are working on CBDCs, where there's like 5 or 6 that are launched. There's another 13 launching by middle of next year or end of next year, and then you have like 25, 30. So they show at what stage they are with CBDCs. So almost every central bank in the world right now, there's about 170 to 180 central banks in the world, and literally 99% of them right now are already either working on the initial phase or the final testing or implementation of CBDCs. And so what a coincidence that the Bitcoin white paper comes out 2009, let's say 2008, 2009, and then within like 5 years, every central bank in the world is already looking at CBDCs. I don't think that's a coincidence, right?
Yeah.
No, it's the Nakamoto story is complete BS.
Yes. I don't think that Bitcoin is the chosen one, even though it was probably the chosen one to bring upon this technology into humanity with the story that is, or the perfect story that is like this saving technology, but in reality, it's not. It's clunky, slow. It has all these dangers attached to it. For example, the fact that if two miners take the most of the hash of Bitcoin, which literally happened like a couple of weeks ago, they were talking about how there's two miners right now that they can take on over the 50% of the mining hash,
Yeah.
and they can control it. So it's more centralized than people actually think it is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and we were given the Bitcoin story. The reason they gave us the Nakamoto story, where they say, it's this new technology that's going to allow people to do bank transfer, like do peer to peer. They're going to be able to pay themselves. They won't have to rely on the banks at all. And it's going to give them this freedom. So it's going to separate them from the banks and separate them from big government. They gave us the story so that we would embrace it, we would adopt it. So it's for citizens of the world to embrace the idea of digitization,
Exactly.
digitization, everything. Because once it's on the blockchain, the government can see everything. Okay.
Right.
And the other day, last time we did a collaboration, something I didn't explain well. When I said that if you have a transaction, you have Bitcoin or any crypto, once you hit a crypto exchange or anything that's regulated where you have KYC or know your customer, because that exchange or that entity has your name and address and everything registered, the government will be able to track all your transactions forever because it's a public ledger. Like anybody can take that address, put it like right now, if I have an address, a crypto address, and I put in the Explorer, I can see every single transaction I ever did going back right back to the Bitcoin Genesis or the
Yeah.
XRP creation, everything, right? I wouldn't know who that person who owns that address, but if I was the government and that address had done any transactions at all with any crypto exchange ever, then if I was a government, I would know every single transaction that person is going to do forever, right? So it's the opposite of like us separating from the government. It's completely opposite because now they can see every single transaction that you're ever going to do. Plus, they can program money. So they can say, oh, you didn't follow our health protocol and you didn't do this and this and this for your health. Oh, well, you're not going to get your UBI, your universal basic income, or you're not going to get your social credit check, or you're not going to get your welfare check, or whatever. So now, because they can program money at a central bank level, they can literally, like you said, they can dictate your life. Say, oh, we're going to give you a stimulus check, but you can
Mm,
only spend it on this and this and this. And you have
yeah.
to spend it within 30 days, but make sure to spend it on with our approved corporations or whatever.
Mhm.
I'm not saying every government's going to do that overnight or whatever, but I'm just saying that the power that it gives them is
Crazy.
crazy over time, like especially in a communist country or like where we're going right now. But yeah, it's and like you said, like Bitcoin is not that main layer that's going to be used to transact. You,
Yeah. Yeah.
you can't go to a coffee shop and wait 20 minutes for your transaction to settle and pay a $5 transaction or $3
Yeah.
transaction or even $2 transaction for a $6 coffee. Like
Exactly.
it doesn't
Makes
work.
no
Like
sense. Even though they've tried, they tried to create the Lightning Network and they try to do like dispatches, they still don't work. Now that we're in the topic of Bitcoin, I would like to ask you regarding what do you think of Tether? What do you think of, because that could also become a major issue for Bitcoin if there's a reason why they are not being audited here in the United States. And that's one thing that could potentially affect Bitcoin in a big way if they get audited and they realize that they're not one to the dollar in their reserves.
yeah.
And that could potentially bring down Bitcoin in a big way. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, my opinion about Tether has always been a bit different than I think a lot of very respected people in the community. I feel as though like Tether was kind of propped up. It was just a propped up. I'm speculating that it was a three-letter agency operation. You know, these very powerful three-letter agency, CIA, NSA, whatever. I think it was likely them that allowed Tether to flourish and made it so that it's never audited and so on and so forth. Because what it was allowed to do is very questionable. I think Tether was kind of maybe, and I can't prove this. I haven't researched it enough, but but I have researched these three-letter agencies and many other stuff. But I'm thinking it's government. It's a government operation at a very high level to prop up crypto. And I think that's why they've never been audited. And I don't really have that concern, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't have that concern where it's going to be audited and they're going to shoot it to zero because it's not really doesn't have the backing that it's supposed to have. It's not really what you call a stable in a sense that it's not has that backing, doesn't have that backing like you said. I don't think they're going to shoot it down like that. I think they're going to do like we're seeing right now. I think they're just going to bring it in under the regulations in the US, do whatever they need to do and just put that under the rug, basically. I don't think we're going to see Tether collapse. They're going to allow it to collapse because it's propping up the whole crypto system. And you know, we have the JP Morgan and we have very, very powerful institutions that are also benefiting from the crypto ecosystem being propped up right now and the ETFs that are coming and everything. So, because if they shoot down Bitcoin, they shoot everything else down because everything's tied to Bitcoin with liquidity. So Ethereum's tied to Bitcoin in the liquidity pools, and then Solana is tied to it too. And then so that's why when Bitcoin goes down, everything goes down with it because of the liquidity pools. So if they shoot down Bitcoin, they're shooting everything down temporarily, and then those cryptos that have real utility would eventually, of course, survive because they have real utility. But yeah, I don't see them shooting Tether down like a lot of people. I think that they will. That's kind of my
Yeah.
opinion there. Because I think, like, yeah, I think they're just gonna bring it under the system and call it a day. It's kind of what I'm
Yeah.
thinking, but I may be wrong.
No, and I agree with you. You know why? Because if Bitcoin was created by the NSA or it was created by a governmental agency,
Yeah,
it has to have a counterpart also created by the same agency that is going to help them print the tethers so that they can prop up the whole space. And I think that's what they've been using it for. And that's
yeah,
why they haven't gotten into trouble. That's why they're not getting audited. That's why they keep printing it and printing it. And that's why Bitcoin has been growing over the
yeah.
last few years. So I agree with your theory. I totally
Okay,
agree that
nice.
it could be them and they needed a vehicle to be able to
Yeah,
print those physical dollars into digital, and then there's more liquidity inside the crypto space so that it could prop up the whole space, starting with the leader, which is Bitcoin, and the first one that came out or the biggest one that everybody knows about.
hmm
But it's still like it's technology that is basically like the what was the name of not Netflix, but the streaming music
Oh,
Napster,
Napster. Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
Napster was like the beginning, and then there were other technologies that came along that was much better, and it became now all the different streaming platforms
Yeah.
that are now regulated, obviously,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
Napster was not regulated. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, so how about we now start talking about the International Organization for Securities Commission, the
Yeah.
IOSC, which is basically like the world or the global SEC counterpart,
Yeah.
and how they are now about to come out with a global stable coin. I think this topic is huge because everybody's talking about stable coins and how
Mm-hmm.
stable coins are basically now the replacement for technologies such as XRP or the XRP Ledger. And they think that XRP is not going to be the one because they came up with the RLUSD, which is their stablecoin for Ripple, which makes no sense. But there's a lot of people out there don't understand the difference. And I think it's important that we talk about this organization that is the IOSC and how they're coming up with this global stablecoin.
Yeah. So I haven't seen anybody else talk on this. I brought it up about a week ago. I did a deep dive on my YouTube channel about this. I'll try to post a video at the end on my end for those watching on my channel, and I'll send you the video. So I had found a document about 5 years ago, and I had completely forgot about that document. And it was coming from the IOSCO, and it was hard to pronounce there, but I've said it so many times, so I do remember. It's actually the IOSCO.
No.
Like you said, it's the International Organization for the Securities Commissions. Like you said, they're tied to the SEC because the Security Exchange Commission in the US is one of those that's a national. So many countries would have different security exchange commissions for their country. So in this document, which is I found about 5 years ago, I remembered that I had that document. I was like, oh my goodness. I think the document was released in 2018, and it talked about global stablecoin arrangements. And it talked about the paper was strictly, and I will post this at the end of the video here. It talked about a hypothetical case scenario. It talked about a hypothetical case scenario, and like I said before, they always say hypothetical, right? That's how they have to talk, as if it's just hypothetical. We're looking into it, we're seeing blah blah blah. Scenario where a private company would build a DLT platform, and it would literally have it would be they would issue this global stablecoin, and this global stablecoin would have a global footprint. And it says, like, for something to be considered a global stablecoin or a global stablecoin arrangement, it has to have a global footprint, it has to be used in different jurisdiction, and it has to be a medium of exchange. So it's describing Ripple to the T, and it says how this coin could be used peer-to-peer, could be exchanged on exchanges, and also what was really crazy about this is that it said that major global financial institutions in the world would be holding different assets, mostly assets that are liquid, and some could be debt instruments that would be holding in different financial institutions around the world to back this global stablecoin. And it said that the value of all these different assets that the global financial institutions would be holding in accounts globally collectively would be called the reserve fund. So it's a reserve fund, and the reserve fund is equal, all of the assets combined are equal to the value of all the tokens. So it said there's a company, capital C, they would issue coin, capital C, and again, so all the reserve fund, all the assets all the different global financial institutions are holding globally as the reserve fund backing this token, the value of all of them would be equal to the value of the tokens in circulation, this global stablecoin. And again, I want people to understand here, it specifically said for something to be considered a global stablecoin, it has to be a medium of exchange, and it has to be cross-border. And it said that you had this company that was proposing to build a platform. So it's unbelievable. Like, this document is insane. So I did a deep dive on this about 4 days ago. If anybody are talking about it, it's from the deep dive that I did on that. And this document came out the same day, the same year, I think, that the SEC in the US was suing Ripple. Seriously, in the documents, they're talking about doing a risk assessment, what kind of risk it could pose. But really, in my opinion, they're talking as if the discussion is because of the potential risk. But in my opinion, they're really talking about what kind of framework, or regulatory framework, do we need to have here to mitigate risk and to make sure it works. That's what they're doing. And the IOSCO is always collaborating with the Payments and Markets Infrastructure, the PFMI, Payments Markets Infrastructure for the BIS, which is a Bank for International Settlements, which is a central bank for all central banks. So you see the IOSCO always in conjunction working with the Financial Stability Board, and that's the global regulator for the BIS, and the Capital Payments Market Infrastructure. They're always working together, and then we see that the Capital Payments Markets Infrastructure for the BIS did a report on the Cross-Border Payments Task Force. So they have a Cross-Border Payment Task Force under the PFMI, the Capital Payments Markets Infrastructure. It's the Committee on Payments and Markets Infrastructure, the CPMI. Okay, one of the only blockchain companies on the Cross-Border Payment Task Force for the CPMI, which is part of the BIS, the only blockchain company on this Cross-Border Payment Task Force is Ripple. There's another one, which is Finality International. But Finality International can't do what Ripple is doing unless they use Ripple or Stellar. Because only Stellar and Ripple are purposely built as exchange currencies, a medium of exchange. And they would have that liquidity and built on the Interledger protocol with everything you need. I'm a bit bigger on XRP, but Stellar is a crazy project as well. But I think Stellar, my understanding is more, it's going to be more for peer-to-peer and small to medium enterprises. It's more their focus. Well, I think the Ripple is putting a big focus on CBDCs. They have a CBDC platform. And so I don't know if Stellar will handle 5, 10, 15% of cross-border, cross-currency, that internal value. And then XRP handles 80%, 90%. I think, for me, I think XRP is 90%. But I have to admit, I did not research Stellar like I've researched XRP, but I know, to me, it's very clear XRP has a much bigger piece of the pie. Yeah. And then I just want to add something else. Sorry, the head technologist at the BIS, Bank for International Settlements, central banks for all central banks, he talks about how the unified ledger would replace SWIFT. Isn't that interesting? So if we have a unified ledger, it would replace SWIFT.
So you're saying that the two coins that are only capable of doing this with these organizations are XRP and XLM.
When they talk about a specific medium
exchange,
you're going from, let's say, US dollar, you want to go from US to euro. You want to send a payment to Europe. They don't want US dollar. They want just euros, or maybe they want yens or whatever. They tell you what currency you want. Automatically, the XRP ledger, you go from US dollar to XRP to euro in seconds. And you have that liquidity, you have that settlement. It's a bridge asset. It's a medium of exchange.
Yeah.
Okay. And so Stellar does the same thing. It's a medium of exchange. And because Stellar is, I think some of the code, Stellar is like a off branch. They took the code from the XRP, or the majority of the code. I think they did some adjustments or whatever, but Stellar technically comes from XRP Ledger to a certain degree, part of the code or whatever. And I think they changed a few things, obviously. But yeah, when they talk about medium of exchange, people, because, and that's, I'm really glad you asked that, Sebastian, because when we're talking about, you were talking about the RU, sometimes I get that in the comments. People are saying, well, Jesse, like I do a video on XRP and everything, and people are like, yeah, but the RLUSD is going to settle transactions. So XRP, like, what if the US dollar just uses RLUSD now? Ripple uses the RLUSD now, and they don't need to use XRP anymore. I'm like, guys, no. Like, if somebody told you that, it's incorrect. Be careful what you believe here, okay? Because the RLUSD is a stable coin. All they're doing is they're technically putting the US dollar on the Ripple blockchain, on the XRP ledger. Okay, and so it allows them to use the US dollar way more easily and bring more utility to the XRP ledger. So anytime they want to go from US dollar, in this case the RLUSD, to euro or settle transactions in another currency, it has to use the XRP ledger. It's not a bridge currency. The RLUSD is not going to replace the need for XRP. Like, I'm telling you, if this is not financial advice, I'm not a financial advisor, this is for entertainment purposes only, but I believe that people who are selling their XRP because they think that this stable coin is going to replace XRP, I think they're going to cry.
Yeah.
I'm not saying for sure, but yeah, like, you're not. And sometimes the central bank documents are talking about how we can settle in CBDC money. So people think, see, oh, well, it's not XRP. It said they can settle in CBDC. No, they're wording it like that. They're not going to tell you in the central bank documents, like, hey, we're going to settle CBDCs using XRP and we're going to settle 20 trillion per day. They're not going to say it. When they say they're settling transaction, anytime they need to go from any type of asset to another, whether it's a CBDC or it's a tokenized stock, tokenized bonds, derivatives, tokenized real estate, tokenized car, when we go from one asset to the other, you need a medium of exchange, you need a bridge currency, you need liquidity. And this is XRP and Stellar. It's not, you can't, there is absolutely no stable coin, regardless of what currency it represents, what country it represents, it's going to be used as a bridge currency. This is why they created Ripple in the first place. It's to replace the US dollar as a global reserve currency because it doesn't work. You
Hmm.
can't have a global reserve currency be a sovereign currency at the same time and settle with it. It causes all sorts of imbalances. It's a big mess because that country needs to run deficits to supply that global currency for the world. It's called the Triffin's dilemma.
Yeah.
So they're not going to create blockchain just to create the same problem that they were trying to fix.
No, but it's good that we're talking about this because I also wanted to ask you regarding that part of the dollar. Do you think that what's on your mind when we talk about like the fact that the world is being de-dollarized and everything is going to become a token or digitized or tokenization, and basically those CBDCs are like the digitization of the specific currency of the different countries.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are saying, or a lot of analysts say that XRP could potentially not necessarily replace the dollar, but help the dollar in its digital way instead of just destroying the dollar. What's your thoughts? Do you think the dollar is gonna disappear, or do you think that thanks to like technologies such as the XRP Ledger, the dollar is gonna continue to work, but in a different way, in a digital way?
Yeah, I think it's going to stay. If it wasn't for all of the regulations they're passing in the US very, very, very quickly, so that the US can adopt blockchain and the US dollar can be used on these different rails and anybody can use it. If they need to settle, they can settle with XRP. It's going to bring a lot of use case and it's going to help the US dollar to be used within this new financial system, right? So I think because of this, and because of the policies that the Trump administration putting in place, and they're putting the US first, you should look for your country first. I think because of these policies, the US dollar still can have some relevance compared to if there was a different administration and they had not passed any regulation that helped the US to have a role in this new economy, right? So I don't think the US dollar is going to be phased out, but it definitely would have lost, I think, more of its usability or use cases or demand if it wasn't for the current administration and putting all these laws in place to make sure that the US doesn't get left behind. But XRP, what's very interesting is I think, yeah, they're creating ways so that the US still, there's a demand for the US dollar. But at the end of the day, what's very interesting here about XRP is I was thinking like these elites, the XRP has limited supply, right? 100 billion. So as all of these different central banks and these sovereign currency, like you said, these national currencies, they keep printing and printing and printing them. Every time they want to settle from go cross border, cross asset, everything, they need to settle with XRP and sometimes XLM. So to me, it's almost like XRP is going to capture the value of all of this inflation. So as the other currencies get inflated and inflated and inflated eventually, and maybe now that we're going to have more liquidity because of this new system, DLT and everything, maybe they won't have to inflate as much because now there's more liquidity. They maybe not need to print as much to stimulate the economy and so on. Whatever they're printing and whatever they're devaluating, XRP Ledger, the XRP and Stellar a bit are capturing the value of all of this inflation. So because the supply stays the same, but all the other currencies, so that's why like you look at the rising Phoenix, the new global coin, new
Yeah.
global reserve currency was rising from the ashes. But what I mean is like when you have medium of exchange asset like a bridge asset like XRP with a limited supply and it's being used to bridge all of these different transactions globally, with this new globalization and cross-border everything. So it has a limited supply, and then all the other fiat currencies that this medium of exchange is acting as a bridge currency for, all of these different currencies, they're being printed and create more of them, more of them. Well, you're just propping up the value of XRP in the future because it's
Yeah.
capturing the value of all this crazy. So as they're burning all the fiat currencies away by printing and they're inflating them, they're losing value. XRP is capturing the value because XRP has to bridge all this value. Plus all the tokenization we talked about. The problem with fiat currencies is there's unlimited supply. They print whatever they want, right? So
Yeah.
like people want you to think like, oh, it's because this country went to war with this one and this country did this and that's why we have inflation and it's because of this situation we had, this health situation we had in 2000, and they're blaming everything. No, it's not. That's not why we have inflation. We have inflation because they're printing too much money. It's a
Yeah.
basic supply and demand.
Yeah, I agree. And now that we're talking about this topic, Jesse, I would like to maybe touch on the fact that a lot of people seem to think that because XRP has 100 billion tokens and they won't be able to print anymore. A lot of people say or think that, especially people that are Bitcoin maxes, they say that Ripple could potentially print more or create more tokens of XRP. And they also use that example that because there's so many compared to Bitcoin, that Bitcoin is only 21 in supply. There's only 21 million Bitcoins, while there's 100 billion XRP. That they seem to understand differently why XRP could potentially have a huge market cap. They're saying that because of there's so many tokens compared to what Bitcoin is, that XRP could never reach 20, 50, or $100, even less $1,000. But I would like to have your thoughts on this.
Yeah, it's so XRP has 50%, 50 times more supply, technically. I think it's what? So 20, is that? Yeah, that's what it is. 50, 49 times more supply, but it's gonna have 100,000 times more demand because Bitcoin is not a bridge currency. That like whether they want to admit it or not is the reality. So the main use case for Bitcoin, whether they like it or not, it's a store of value. That's the main use case. It's a store of value. But other currencies that have a limited supply are technically a store of value as well, as long as they have use cases and like as long as they're not getting inflated. So the main use case for Bitcoin is a store of value, which means that instead of holding fiat currencies, you can hold gold or you can hold Bitcoin, and you're storing your value into this commodity instead of storing it into fiat currencies because the government keeps printing more and more and more fiat currencies, so it's losing its value. So you just hold Bitcoin instead, or Bitcoin, and that's what they mean when they say it's a store of value. And that's the main use case for Bitcoin because like I said, like you can't it's never going to be used as the main currency to do all of the different transactions globally. That like it can't scale. I don't care what they say. It cannot scale, and it doesn't have institutional adoption for it was not built to be a bridge currency or payment. Like it just doesn't scale. There's so many reasons, from the fact that it's not fully decentralized, like you said, two companies, two entities control more than 50 sometimes of the hash power, the cost that it burns, the cost for the transactions, the speed. There's so many issues. But yeah, like if you look at XRP, why it can do these astronomical numbers is because it's going to settle trillions and trillions of dollars. Like right now, countries are moving 10 to 20 trillion dollars per day. And this is going to be bridged through XRP. And when you look at the order books, there's a lot of people say, oh, well, how can it be like 1,000? It's going to be 100, 500, 1,000 trillion market cap. I know it seems to sound ridiculous, but you have to understand that XRP is capturing the value of an internet. And we talked about this last time. I
Mhm.
think I talked about that a bit. Like this is because people are looking at XRP as and they're comparing it with other cryptocurrencies or other massive companies, and they're looking at the market cap and they're saying, how could it go that high? This is not a regular payment company, guys. This is a token that's capturing the value of an internet because Ripple is the internet of value. It's not just a payment platform or a payment network or a payment company. No, it's an internet. Like I explained last time, if we have the internet of information right now, we're sending gazillions and gazillions of gigabytes of data per day, if not per minute. I'm not sure what the amount is, but the amount of data we're flowing through the internet protocol right now when we're sending each other videos and we're streaming and all these things is unreal. If you had a token with 100 billion supply and that token had to be used every time somebody uploaded a video on the internet, imagine what the value of that token would be. But XRP is the internet of value. What I was describing a few seconds ago is the internet of information, where we have a TCP protocol moving these packets of information over this protocol, but there's no token capturing the value of all this utility going through the protocol when we're uploading videos and sharing videos and sending emails and all the stuff we're doing. But now we're moving to the internet of value, which is the interledger protocol and the XRP ledger. And this time we have a token that's capturing the value of this new internet. Right? People don't understand the amount of volume that's going to go through this token is absolutely insane. And we've seen some really good videos out there. I want to do a video on this about the XRP multiplier effect. And this is not only for XRP, but it works for other cryptos too. When you look at the order books, let's say you have, like, if you go on XRP and you put an order for $10 billion, you would think because the market cap is, let's say, 150 billion, you would put an order for 10 billion, you would think that the price only goes up 7% or 8% because the market cap's 100 billion, 150 billion, let's say. I'm not sure what the market cap is right now, but let's say it's 150 billion. No. If you do a buy order of $10 billion right now in the order books, the price might do like 40, 50x. It's called the multiplier effect. You inject 10 billion on the order books, you buy 10 billion worth of XRP, but the market cap does like a 30, 40, 50x. Like it's the market cap does 50x what your purchase order.
Yeah.
So like imagine if you're flowing 2, 3, 5, 10 trillion. I will admit if somebody buys 20 billion, there's a buy order on the order books of let's say 20 billion, and somebody sells 10 billion at the same time. So it's a net positive of 10 billion. You have 10 billion being bought more than what is being sold. So you have a positive purchase order of 10 billion. The market cap might go up by 500 billion. Or actually, the video he was showing, it was doing like a 400x or 600x. What was being purchased on the order books, 10 billion, market cap was going up by 4 trillion.
Yeah.
With an order of 10 billion, something like that. So it depends on the order books, but people are thinking like, again, people are thinking, how can it do that? Well, first of all, you have the multiplier effect. These are order books. You're filling orders. There's only a few people selling at $30 and the other people are selling at 50 and then other people are not selling before 80. There's not that liquidity. The price just jumps to wherever it needs to go to fill up those orders. And so when you have that, plus considering that this is the internet of value, where it's going to be moving trillions per day, like when people say like XRP is not going to hit $10.
And another thing that I would like to add here is that this is just the beginning. Like we just got the new regulations that are about to pass, the Genius Act, the Clarity Act. Ripple just won, literally a few weeks ago, just won the SEC lawsuit. ETFs this week, supposedly there's the first ETFs coming out for XRP. And just alone, there's like 19 more or 18 more ETFs that are going to be approved here in the next few weeks. And they're saying that about $4 to $8 billion are going to be coming into the XRP ledger just because of those ETFs, because of all the demand of all those ginormous financial institutions that are out there, like waiting for this opportunity to be able to bring their institutional money into a vehicle that where their investors can legally invest into XRP instead of them doing it by themselves. They like to have their vehicles to do it through the regulated banking system. So now we can see that multiplier effect starting to happen here in the next month or so. And obviously, we're not saying that it's going to jump, but it could potentially have that multiplier effect. And that is where we're going to see the fireworks. And another thing is that the whole crypto market is only 4 trillion at the moment. 4 trillion. And we're expecting this to be, like you're saying, the internet of value. We're expecting this to be all the money. Like Chris Larson, I think, is the one who said that.
He was giving a presentation. I forget his name, but he asked, what's the total addressable market size of XRP? and nobody was saying anything. He says all the money,
All the
but Chris
money.
Larson would have said it as well too. Pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So we're talking about trillions and trillions, if not
trillions.
quadrillions of dollars. And another news here, talking about news that is crazy. It looks that Franklin Templeton just announced that they're launching and lending and trading powered by the tokenized money markets in the RLUSD on the XRP Ledger. And this is another huge potential catalyst of literally Franklin Templeton is one of the biggest in financial institutions. They're up there with BlackRock. And just imagine, this is just the beginning. Like, this is probably one of the NDAs that they've been talking about for the 1,700 NDAs that Ripple has.
Yeah,
This is probably one that they finally came and brought the news to the public. But
correct.
imagine when bigger and bigger institutions are like coming up with to the public with their news about how they're tokenizing certain part of their whole deal. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, everything's being tokenized. Even the World Economic Forum, which I absolutely despise because of what their real agenda is. They said about 3 years ago, I think it was 3, 4 years ago, they said that within 4 years, 10% of the GDP of the world would be tokenized. So they're tokenizing everything because of all the advantages that it gives them by having representing ownership on the blockchain. Once you tokenize, whether it's stocks, bonds, derivatives, anything, and you put it on the blockchain, then you have automatic settlement, you have instant liquidity, you have verification, you can verify. It gives you like 15 different advantages. It makes everything seamless, it's auditable, it's transparent, it's instant settlement, it's instant finality. It removes like 90% of your employees, like all of the different legwork that goes into confirming transactions and everything. So they're tokenizing the whole world. That's what people need to understand. Like the same way almost every industry created a website for the internet, right? Once it took off in 2005, 2008, once it took off, the same way the whole world created websites, the whole world is being tokenized, meaning that the ownership of something, whether it's real estate or the stock, instead of having a certificate, paper certificate, you're going to have a digital token. The token represents the ownership of that asset. So everything's being tokenized, and that is what's the internal value. Derivatives alone is like 4,000 trillion right now. That's just derivatives. Real estate, I think, is 400 trillion, even maybe more. Government debt is like 150 to 200 trillion. Corporate debt is 300 trillion. Like just those five things alone there is like 5,000 trillion. Okay, and this is gonna speed up, and it's gonna get bigger. So yeah, like this is like you have tokens capturing the value of an internet. Like people, because for me, when I understood they were building the internet value, and I started researching this many years ago, almost every single day for years, I wanted to understand, like, okay, if this is the internet of value, and we have a token that's positioned to capture this value of this new internet, like, what is the value of the internet we have today? Like, what does it mean to be an internet in the first place? What is an internet, right? And I started looking into that, and that's where I was like, no, the potential is insane. And I hope I'm right. But
Yeah, I think that is basically where the opportunity lays, literally, like the tokenization of the value around the world into the blockchain. That is exactly the opportunity that is going to be the biggest opportunity that we're all going to see in our lifetime, to be able to like literally create generational wealth. That is the biggest transfer of wealth, because it's all the money, is
yeah,
tokenization of all the assets in the world. And that's why people like me, people like you, Jesse, people in the XRP community are so passionate about this information, because
yeah,
people in reality, 99% of the people out there have no clue this is happening.
no,
They don't want to hear about it. When they hear it, they get confused and they kind of drop it. But that's our mission here with Jesse. This is my same mission. I want to scream it from the rooftops. I want
yeah,
to
yeah,
tell as many people as possible that they need to position themselves right now before we cannot even buy XRP, because it
yeah,
could happen in the future. There's going to be a point that there's going to be a supply shock, and or the regulations change, or you won't be able to buy XRP because it's too expensive, or because you cannot buy it through a CBDC, or because there's a supply shock. There's so many things that in the future could happen that could potentially take you out of the market, and it's already happening. Like the fact that it's already at $3, a lot of people cannot afford to buy 10,000 XRP anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing.
You know?
Yeah. So I think we'll always be able to have it.
Yeah.
But like you said, if you, let's say eventually goes to just $1,000, right? If you buy it $3 and it goes to 1,000, that's a 300x. 300x. But if you buy it at $30 instead of 3, you wait a bit too long and you buy it at 30. Well, instead of doing a 300x when it goes to 1,000, you only did a 30x. So let's say somebody invests 500,000 right now, and it happens to go to 1,000. It's 300x, right? They put $100,000. That would be $33 million when it goes to 1,000. But if people get in, let's say when it's $30 instead of $3, that's a 10x less. When it goes to 1,000, if it does go to 1,000, okay, you have 3 million instead of 30 million. That's quite a difference. That's why it's crucial to be early. It's crucial to be early because that extra 10x ends up being 10 million instead of 1 million, or 5 or 50 million instead of 5 million.
Yeah.
Like it's like people don't realize like that extra 10x that you get just because you were earlier, that extra 50x, and it allows you to sell some if you want to, and then keep the rest for 10 more years because you were early. But if you're not early, you might have to sell it all to survive, or sell 50% or 80% because you weren't that early. But if you're early, just when it does a 10, 15x, you've got enough money there that you can just sell 20, 30% maybe, and the rest you can hold for a while because you were early.
Yeah, or because you sold and you didn't hold. That's another thing that I wanted to talk about here with you, Jesse, so that we start to wrap up this interview. A lot of people are jumping ship. A lot of people that were like super XRP, like 100% XRP and the ISO tokens, and I want to talk about a little bit like how people, why are they doing it? And it's not a lot of people, it's just a few people that were kind of like very vocal, and now they're being vocal about other projects such as Metallicus, for example. It's an example. I'm not saying anything bad about Metallicus, or we're not going to say anything bad about it, but I would like to touch base with you about this because I think in some point there anybody's gonna have that feeling, that urge of, am I in the wrong coin? Should I jump ship to something else because maybe it's a lower market cap, or because you don't have the conviction like Jesse and I, and you go and you watch video from somebody else and they all of a sudden they convince you because you don't have that conviction, you haven't done the research, you haven't studied this whole thing like we've studied for thousands and thousands of hours. What do you say to those people that are like jumping ship, or that they don't have the conviction like you and I, and they're maybe have fear, or they're confused, or they already sold?
Yeah, like there's can't write anything in stone no matter how confident I am. For me, I'm like 5,000% sure this has to be worth like a ridiculous amount of worth ridiculous amount of money eventually. But to me, I think the people that are jumping ship, and this is just my point of view from based on my knowledge, it's because, like you said, I think it's a lack of knowledge, or they have wrong misconception. They read something, for example, some people saying, oh, because of RLUSD, you don't need XRP anymore. They're going to settle with RLUSD. I see that in my comments sometimes. This is coming from a lack of knowledge, a lack of research, a lack of understanding, and lack of knowledge. The RLUSD is not a bridge asset. All it's doing is bringing the US dollar on the XRP ledger in the ecosystem. So now everything that's using the US dollar for global trade and all these different things, now if they need to settle, they can settle with XRP. All this is doing is bringing more utility and more volume to the XRP ledger. And this is what David Schwartz said. This is only benefiting the XRP ledger and the ecosystem. It's benefiting the potential value of XRP because we're bringing the US dollar closer to the XRP ledger, technically, if that's a way to say it. So that would be one misconception people have. Oh yeah, no, they're going to settle with the stablecoin instead. No, That's not true. That's a lack of knowledge. I would rather people know the truth and have full knowledge, and then they decide based on the truth, not a misconception or based on something that somebody said that didn't know what they were talking about.
Right.
Another one is like, oh, well, we have these private networks, and now these XRP private networks, they're not going to need to settle in the public XRP. Again, that is incorrect. When you want to go cross border, cross currency, you're going to have to touch that public ledger, that XRP ledger. That's another example. Or, oh, it's not, or another one is like, oh, they're all going to confiscate the coin later on, and it's like all these different theories. Like I've seen all of them. It's based on a lack of knowledge. They have not done enough research. So as soon as somebody spits out a lie or something that's not true, they take it like truth, and it's a lack of knowledge. I think people that are selling, it's a lack of research, lack of knowledge. It's based on things that are incorrect. It's a misunderstanding of how the system works. Because, for example, I get a lot of people saying XDC, if you look at Corda, XDC replaces XRP. No, like XDC is used for tokenization, everything that involves with global trade. But it's not a bridge asset in the sense that it's not purposely built where you just press a button and you can go from any type of asset into XDC and into another asset. It's not built for that. It's not
Mm.
purposely built for that, and it doesn't have the liquidity to do it even if it had been built for that. Like, people don't understand how advanced and how purposely built the XRP ledger is. With the interledger protocol, the XRP ledger, it has a decentralized exchange on it. It has the most advanced automated market makers. It has a CBDC platform where they're launching CBDCs on the XRP ledger, where central banks can launch privately, do their own thing individually. Only Ripple has that. Like all these things that it has, no other blockchain even comes close except for Stellar. But
Right.
people think, for example, because R3 partnered with Solana, R3 Corda, which uses the Corda settler, which uses the XRP for settlement, the Corda settler exclusively uses XRP for settlement. They think because Solana, R3 mentioned a partnership with Solana, they think that R3 Corda doesn't need to use XRP for settlement anymore. It's going to do it with Solana. No, Solana is not a bridge currency. So these are misconceptions. This is a lack of knowledge. And it's normal because it takes thousands and thousands and thousands of hours to understand and to debunk these things. Like I spent over 9,000 hours researching XRP. And if I didn't spend 9,000 hours, I would have some of the misconceptions that they have.
Yeah.
So it's a lack of knowledge, which is normal. Like not everybody has the time to take that risk and do the research, but not
Yeah.
everybody has that time or wants to take the time, right? And I don't blame them. But
Another thing is that some of these people that are all of a sudden so gung-ho into one of those new networks, you have to also take it into consideration that they might be getting paid some sort of a payment
sometimes, yeah,
to talk about certain
yeah,
networks. I'm not, obviously, this is not confirmed, but it's also like you have to be careful. Like, for example, when I speak about XRP, when Jesse speaks about XRP, we're not getting paid by Ripple. Ripple doesn't pay us to do this interviews. This is something that is a passion that we have because we want to help out people, but also take advantage of such an amazing opportunity for ourselves, but also for other people that don't see it. And we want to wake up people so that they can also take advantage of the opportunity. But we're not getting paid for making this interview or for talking about this technology. This is actually something that is out there for you to find. These documents like Jesse, like Smoke Dog, like these guys that are constantly finding these documents that are out there in the public domain. This is not in the public news. This is not in mainstream
no,
media. This
no,
is something that you have to have the eye and look and have the patience and read these long documents and look at the fine print, and you're going to find this kind of information. This is not something that you're going to find only listening to some dude in YouTube or TikTok. This is something that you have to read for yourself so that you understand, and not just because somebody told you. Watch out when somebody comes out of the woodwork and say, okay, XRP is not the one, this is the one. You have to see, okay, what is the motive behind this? What is really behind this company? What is really behind Ripple? Like, what is all these documents, what is all these NDAs? Why was it in a lawsuit with the SEC? Why was it sued by the SEC? There's many reasons why all of this is coming together in that way. It is all, in my opinion, because this is all a plan that has been in the making for many, many years, many decades. And this is the control transitioned into this new
Mm.
system that is based on this technology.
And right now, one thing I want to add before I forget is we were talking about XRP. I don't want our viewers to get the misconception that I'm saying it's only about XRP. Like, I'm talking about the internet of value, and the reason I'm very excited about XRP as the internet of value and Quant as the internet of trust is because they're capturing the utility of internets. And it's nothing bigger than the internet, right? That's why, to me, I see they have an insane amount of potential, especially Quant as well, because it's 1,800 times cheaper than Bitcoin right now based on market cap. So I'm very excited and bullish like crazy about these because these are actual internets. But there are different, like when we talk about crypto, it's not only about XRP. Like there are other cryptos that have a ridiculous amount of potential, really good amount of potential, which you talk about a lot. So for example, XDC is going to capture global trade. It's about tokenizing all documents that are involved in global trade. So letters of credit, insurance for the shipments, and all these things. Purchase orders, sell orders, all these things. Invoices, they're tokenizing all these documents, putting on the Zinfin network, which is XCC. Then you've got HBAR, and you've got XLM, like we said, and you've got other AI projects, and you've got other projects that, like, there's different use cases. So, I don't want people to think that I'm saying that
It's only,
XRP is the only token that's relevant in this new fourth industrial revolution that we're going, but it is to me the one, like technically the main, some of the main ones, like Quant being the internet of trust, XRP being the internet of value. Like there's other crazy, really good solid projects as well. I don't think they might not be as big as XRP or QNT or my tokens, but it's not only about XRP.
I
Like
agree.
it's
You have to not only invest all your money into one, I think that you have to diversify in different of these tokens and not be only based on one. I think the XRP is the best one, and I think is for me is like one of the most important
yeah,
ones in my portfolio. But I
exactly.
also have XDC, I also have XLM, I also have a little bit of Bitcoin, I also have Chainlink, I
Hmm.
also have
Exactly.
HBAR. I have
Yeah.
many, because I think you have to have a specific portfolio, and then inside your portfolio you can have a little bit more of XRP or a little bit more of whatever you think is going to be best, but at least be exposed to what's going to be the new financial system rails. These are the rails of the new financial system, and they complement each other. Not because I think I see a lot of these people that are like in the camp of only Chainlink, and they go and they talk a lot of bad stuff about the XRP army and so on. Like, I don't think that's something that is necessary for this industry. I think that they all complement each other. For example, recently it was said that Swift was using Chainlink or was testing Chainlink or something like that. All of a sudden, everybody in Chainlink jumps and says it was an XRP. They don't understand that they do two different things that are completely different. They complement each other in this ecosystem of technology. It's not just XRP or Chainlink or XLM. It's a complement. They all do different things and they complement each other to help develop these new rails of the financial system.
Yeah, and to clarify about Chainlink, like what Chainlink does mainly, it's an oracle. It brings in data from the real world and it brings it to the blockchain. So if you have a smart contract, which is a predefined rules on a blockchain, and you're saying, okay, if this president wins the presidency in this country on this date, and the weather is 25 degrees on that day, and if Google does this, then I want to buy this property, whatever, right? Smart contract. You're sending rules. You're saying if this and this and this happens in the real world, sell my stock or buy this or do this or do that. It's a smart contract. Or Chainlink is an oracle that helps to bring this data. It brings data from the real world to put it on the blockchain so that we can know, okay, did that president win in this country and did this happen? Because you're creating rules with a smart contract and you're saying specifications, saying if this and this and this happens, then do this. But you need that data to know if that happened in the real world. So that's what Chainlink does. It's interoperability. It brings in data to the blockchain so that we know what's happening in the real world and we can execute these contracts if these things have happened in the real world. That's
Yeah.
what Chainlink does mainly. Chainlink is not a bridge asset. Like the idea from the Chainlink community that Chainlink is replacing XRP is absolutely bonkers. It's
Yeah.
absolutely ridiculous. Like, did you even research XRP 10 minutes before thinking that. Chainlink is not built to go from one currency to the other. Ripple is purposely built what we talked about, XRP, so that you can go from one type of asset and you can use XRP for liquidity. You go from that type of asset to XRP to the other type of asset. You're settling. That's what it does. Chainlink doesn't do that. It doesn't have the interledger protocol, doesn't have the XRP ledger, doesn't have the order books, doesn't have the decentralized exchange, doesn't have liquidity, doesn't have RippleNet, the network, doesn't have
Yeah.
anything at all to be a bridge asset. They're not even the same family. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? Like, so Chainlink complements XRP in the sense that if there's a smart contract that says, if this and this and this happens in the real world, I want to settle my transaction, I want to settle using XRP. Well, Chainlink brings the data, boom, boom, boom. Okay, it confirms that this has happened, and then the transaction is settled with XRP. It's not settled with Chainlink. Chainlink's not a bridge asset. Get that out of your head, guys. I'm sorry. Like,
That's good, necessary
it's
to say, because yeah, people like just grab these little
like,
pieces of information of people talking bad about XRP because of somebody talking from the Chainlink Marines, Link Marines, that's how they call themselves. And then they take that little piece of information and make a decision based on ignorance, based on somebody that just spoke out of ignorance because they don't understand that there are different technologies that complement each other. And you don't want to make that mistake. You don't want to be flopping around from coin to coin because you hear some information that is incorrect. That's why you have to be very careful of who you listen to, and also make your own research. Go out and see that what we're talking about is real. It's not like we're making this stuff up. It's literally documented. These are documents that have been between big financial entities and big rule makers around the world that are making the choice to do the transfer blockchain technology system. They're not going to do it because they planned it for decades and come up with this technology even before Bitcoin. Like it is known now and documented that the XRP technology and Ripple were before even Bitcoin came along. That's when you realize this is something that comes from years and years before even Bitcoin showed up. So
the concept of like Ripple, I think it was OpenCoin at the time, but Ripple was created technically when you see an email coming from, it was not Arthur Britt, it was somebody else. He sends an email in 2004 talking about Ripple Network or OpenCoin or whatever. You see that Ripple was created the same year ISO 20022 was created.
imagine that.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. And I want to add something too. Sorry, I was talking about Chainlink because I said this in our last interview. I will admit that a lot of the XRP community probably doesn't realize how big Chainlink is. Like what I meant is last time I said Chainlink is probably a bit bigger than most of the XRP community realizes, right? So it goes on both sides too, but I think the XRP community might not be thinking Chainlink is that big because every time the Link Marines are crapping on XRP saying that they're going to replace it, probably the XRP army is looking at them saying, you're not even a bridge currency. What are you talking about? So maybe that's why the XRP community is thinking that Chainlink's not going to do much because sometimes when the Link Marines are bashing XRP, they're saying that Chainlink is replacing XRP, and Chainlink doesn't even do 0.0001% of what XRP does. So it could make sense why the XRP community think that Chainlink is obsolete or it's not as big as what it actually is, because when they argue with the XRP community, they're talking as if it's a bridge asset and it doesn't do what XRP does. So I don't know, but I'm just saying Chainlink is probably a bit bigger than the XRP community realizes in
Yeah.
regards to the Oracle. It is the main one, and it's going to serve like crazy amount of purpose in the DeFi world to bring data from the real world, bring it on chain, stuff like that. But yeah, I just wanted to say that like it's probably a bit bigger than most of the XRP community realizes. But the idea that it's replacing XRP, what are you talking about? It's not even the same thing. Like the cow eats the apple, right? Like
Exactly.
yeah.
Well, Jesse, so that we start wrapping up this interview, I would like you to tell us what are your thoughts on the market right now? What are your thoughts on what has happened lately? The fact that they just cut interest rates yesterday, finally. What do you see happening in the next 3 to 4 months? You know that usually the bull run part of the
Yeah.
cycle is about to happen. What are your thoughts about the market? What are your thoughts about the price of XRP, maybe Bitcoin? Where do you see us going here in the next few months?
If it follows what it has done for the last 12 years, every 4 year or whatever, it follows it to the T. Like the chart is the same, the cycles are the exact same. We're breaking out of that bear right now. We're like, if you look at the chart, we're breaking out. It's like we're right at that banana zone. If it does what it's always done before, every single time, regardless of how people were negative and no matter what the sentiment was, it always did the same time about this time. Like the
Yeah.
next month, 2, 3, 4 to 8 months is just even up to maybe 9, 10, 12 months, just bonkers. Like we're there. Unless the Federal Reserve keeps being really stubborn because they're doing everything to stop Trump from looking good, unless they decide that they're not going to lower the interest rates, and I can't see they will because they were caught red-handed about a week ago. The numbers,
Wow.
the data, they had exaggerated data so that
No
when
way.
Trump was in place, it looked like there was so much less job under Trump, so they were justifying keeping the rates higher, but they were caught with their pants down. It was only looking worse because they had inflated numbers by over 900,000. I think it
Oh,
was even more than a million. The employment rate under Biden, they exaggerated like crazy, so it looked like it had lowered under Trump, which was complete BS. They got caught.
yeah.
Plus, they're still keeping the interest rates low. So, but it just goes to show the power of the central banks, right? Like,
Yeah.
why is this entity that's completely separate from government? Like, it's literally does what it controls the economy with interest rates and monetary policy. Not even the president can do much. Like, think about that for a minute.
Yes.
So, as long as they do what they normally do, that they've done for the past 20 years, is lower interest rates and print money, we should be going to the moon. But they're doing everything not to make Trump look like he was right.
Of course.
Anyways, like, we're not even going to go there.
The
Hey,
person who
thanks.
still believes in mainstream media is totally lost in reality because mainstream media is just propaganda and it's confusion for you. Like if you wanna be able to see what's really going on, you have to do your own research and you have to start looking into independent newscasters or independent new people that are like giving you the real news.
Yeah.
What you hear on TV is already like totally manipulated and it's
Oh, it's like
totally
watching a movie.
biased.
If you go on X right now, you spend 4 weeks on X, just constantly on X for 4 weeks, really researching every subject, the conflict in the Middle East, difference between the Trump administration and the Biden administration, what they really did, Obama. Just research. You're the most, what's the word I'm looking for? Anyways, you go on X to look at these main issues and do some research. Within a month, you'll have more truth and reality than you've had in 100 years of mainstream media. You will be more informed by going on X because it's the only channel right now. Elon Musk bought it so that we would have free speech.
Yeah.
Paid $42 billion for us to have free speech because every outlet, even social media, was all controlled by these very, very powerful three-letter agencies. So he bought it. It took him like 6 months to kick out the three-letter agencies out of there. They're controlling the narrative completely, just like they do with Facebook and all these other platforms.
Yeah.
So it's the only platform we have, the major social media platform, that is free speech, where you can go and say, no, this senator did this, and this is the facts, and this, whatever you're talking about, regardless. These are the real immigration numbers, and this is the real facts about drug money laundering, whatever, any issue we have right now in the world. So you can go there, and within a month, you'll know more about what's really going on in the world, globally or North America, like everything. You'll know more about all these major issues than 99% of the people in the world just by going on X 1 month.
Yeah. Hopefully it stays like that. Yeah, that's the only place where you can find the truth. And also in YouTube, but YouTube is a little more longer content that you have to listen to. You have to find the key opinion leaders that are giving you the, what's really happening, what they see, and then you can start forming your own conclusion and opinion.
Yeah.
But by just watching what they say on a newscast on CNN, that's basically a recipe for you being hypnotized on something that is not reality.
Yeah, it's
And
free
that's,
information.
yeah, it's like information, like they're just giving you information that they want to give you that is completely biased on who is paying for that information to be spread around. So
It's unreal. Oh, I wish we could go on and on about that, but there's so many things I learned from X. It's
same
unbelievable.
here.
Like for example, the media will say he's evil because he shut down the U.S. aid. And they always show people screaming like, "Oh, so many people that needed the money going to lose the money." When in reality, USAID was paying billions and billions of dollars to terrorism. They're
Yeah.
financing terrorism globally, and they were paying like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in social payments for people that were dead. Like there was like, I don't know, it's 100 million per month. They had like 1 million or 2 million people that are like, if you look at the math, they're like 125 years old, still receiving social benefits. Taxpayers are paying for that. And then they were paying billions and billions of dollars per month to these terrorist organizations or linked terrorist organizations. But if you listen to mainstream media, what they're telling you, you think it's like the people that are losing the money from USAID is all these like these amazing organizations that really need money. But when they did the audits on it, it's unbelievable where the money was going. Like nobody in his right state of mind would support where the money was going. A lot of the money for USAID.
So yeah, you have to like start like going in there and have critical thinking and start questioning stuff. If you don't question things and you just take things blank as they come to you from any media, you are going to be manipulated. And the only way is to start having a little bit of critical thinking and suspend all kinds of beliefs that you may have about certain things. And then sooner or later, you're going to start seeing through the lies, through the manipulation, through the propaganda, through all of these things that are like keeping you stuck in the matrix, basically how they want you to be, like a plug in the matrix instead of having a voice and having your own opinion and your own discernment. They want the majority to be like that, basically NPCs, people that are like completely zombies that don't have an opinion and they just do what the left or the right tells them. They just don't have their own thinking, their own opinion. They just repeat what they hear. We don't need people like that. We need people that can think for themselves. And I think that's what most of us here, like me and Jesse, do. Well, Jesse, thank you so much again for this amazing opportunity to talk to you and to discuss these important subjects that a lot of people need to clarify, need to learn. Thank you for all of you who stayed here until the end.
Yeah.
Jesse, like always, amazing information you share with us. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, man. I really appreciate being here. And like I said, it's an honor to be here with you, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to have these talks with me. And I made a new friend. It's awesome.
Yes, thank you, Jesse.
Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
so hopefully we'll do this very soon again, and we'll discuss new topics and new developments going around in the industry, and hopefully it helps you out. Make sure to subscribe. If you don't follow Jesse, make sure you go to Apex Crypto Consulting Group on YouTube is your main channel, and also on X.
Yeah, I'm on X as well. On X, it's just if you do Apex Crypto, you'll find me. I'm trying to think that it's Apex Consult NFA. Apex Consult NFA. And I was just gonna ask, what's your YouTube handle exactly? Because
is my name Sebastian Saldarriaga.
Okay, that's it. Yeah, at Sebastian. Okay, so his name on the screen, guys. If you're watching my YouTube channel, give him a follow. And you have like what 300,000 followers on TikTok?
Yes.
Nice.
What's Sebastian Saldarriaga with an S at the end.
With an S.
With an S at the end.
Nice.
On TikTok.
Yeah, give this guy a follow. Go check out his house and his vehicles. They're nice. And his beautiful wife. Beautiful family pictures you have.
Thank you, Jesse. Well, we'll see you again soon. And again, thank you. I'll send you a big hug and thank you to everybody for watching.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. Thank you, guys. See you.
Bye.